Hey, Saskatchewan friends. So, recently there's more and more discussion about why do we need policies in place to try and keep people in safe or to restrict people's movements or however we want to sort of frame it, to try and lower the overall load of COVID-19 in Saskatchewan instead of just relying on personal responsibility, because personal responsibility is something that our own premier has advocated for a long time very loudly, saying people can just stay home if they want to stay home. The problem with this is it's such a gross oversimplification of the fact that not everyone has the same desire or compliance, and these don't always coincide. So think about this grid that I've drawn out here, where we can imagine that some people are high desire, they want to stay home. Some people are low desire. They don't want to stay home, they want to go out and see their friends. Some people are high compliance, just they're well informed, or through their own work situation, they're able to work from home regardless of whether they want to or not. So they are more of a high compliance group, or they're low compliance because they're just going to do whatever they want regardless of public safety or thinking about how their actions might actually put other people at risk. Now, some people up here in the high desire, high compliance group, myself being one of them, I work from home, I teach my university classes remotely, and I'm also well informed, so I know that there's a risk of COVID-19 to myself, to my family, not only death, but also disability, long-term effects. And I also just have high compliance because I don't have a lot of reason to leave the house because I don't work outside of the home. Other people might still be high desire, but they're low compliance. And this group of people is often low wage and public facing. You've got people who are EAs in schools, people working in restaurants, people who might be working in a meat processing plant or things like that, where they have an hourly wage and they can't stay home because of their job, and they also need to put food on the table. They need to pay their bills. They need to be able to survive through this pandemic, not just worrying about what are the chances that I get COVID, but if I also don't work, what are going to be the ramifications for myself or for my family because of that? Then you've got people who are high compliance, even though they don't want to be. Generally, if they're high compliance, we don't need to worry about those people too much because they're already doing the right thing from a public health perspective. And then we've got people who are low desire, low compliance. They go to the anti-mask rallies. They're the people who have 30-person parties, even though we're supposed to be restricted to household bubbles. They aren't going to follow the guidelines because they have bought into the disinformation and conspiracies about COVID-19 being a real pandemic that is affecting people and killing people in our province, over 400 of them in just the last 4 months. So what does policy do that personal responsibility doesn't? One, it increases compliance. It increases compliance for everyone because we have fines in place, right? So if people are going to get fined for breaking their personal bubbles, for going out and having parties and things like that, that increases everyone's compliance. And that also reduces everyone's exposure, and it keeps everyone in the entire community a little bit safer. The other thing we can do with policy that we can't do with personal responsibility is that the federal government has wage top-ups and it has small business sort of incentives for when there is a lockdown or when there's a slowdown, when restaurants are not allowed to actually have in-person dining, if it all has to be takeout or delivery. This allows people who are in this low wage, high desire, low compliance group to be pushed over to high compliance because suddenly they're able to receive an income from the federal government, not even from the provincial government, that allows them to stay home and keep themselves safe. Also, if they do still need to be doing more public-facing jobs, as there are less people out and about in the community, there's less chances of exposure, and their personal risk is lowered. This isn't about you and your risk. This is about our entire community's risk and the choices that people have to make and are forced to make in order to survive and put themselves at risk of COVID-19. If we were properly following the NACI guidelines and prioritizing public-facing workers, such as teachers, such as policemen, such as firefighters, and giving them vaccinations in order to make them more safe, then we could say, well, we need to worry a little less about policy because we've allowed those people to be safe even though they have to be out in public-facing jobs. The problem is that Saskatchewan has done a very lazy job with immunization, where we've only gone about an age-based sort of system, and we've really skipped over a lot of the high-risk individuals and high-exposure individuals, which in the case of variants, high exposure does mean higher risk as well. People in their 20s, 30s, and 40s are hooked up to ventilators. People are dying at a 50 to 60% higher rate with B117 compared to regular COVID, and this is scary to people, but they have no choice except to keep working because the government is refusing to put policies in place. So the next time someone says to you, it's just about personal responsibility, stay home if you want to, remind them that not everyone has that same freedom to make that choice.